guys, welcome back to Taylor on TV. My name is Taylor, and this week we're going to be talking about another Tyler Perry film. Last week we talked about Tyler Perry's A Divorce in the Black, and what a train wreck that was. Probably the worst Tyler Perry movie there is. But this week I want to get a little more positive, and I want to talk about my favorite Tyler Perry movie and arguably the best movie that he has. Well, in my opinion, I think this is the best movie that Tyler Perry has in his catalog, and that is called Temptation: Confessions of a Marriage Counselor. So in my opinion, I think A Divorce in Black is like the evil stepbrother to this movie, or the evil twin brother to this movie. In fact, even their cover photos are very similar, but it seems like everything that A Divorce in the Black got wrong, this movie got right. It is so good. Like literally, I have a list of 100 films or 100 of my favorite films, and this movie actually makes the cut. I'm not just trying to give Tyler Perry his flowers. This is one of my top 100 favorite movies. So for my top 100 movies, I think I want to work backwards. So this is going to be movie number 100 on my top 100 favorite movies list. Now, I always wanted to talk about my top 100 favorite movies on this channel, but I never thought in a million years that this would be the first one that I talk about. I'm actually quite embarrassed to have a Tyler Perry movie be one of my favorite movies. I don't think I ever would have told anybody that, but we're here now. So let's get into some details about this film before we get started. So first things first, this movie came out in 2013 and it has a runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes. Now, I think we talked last week about how A Divorce in the Black was 2 hours and he literally did nothing with those 2 hours. This comes in just a little shy of 2 hours and it is 10 times better. Everything is better about this film. So it's just interesting to see how he's fallen from grace, no pun intended, because I think that's another Tyler Perry movie, A Fall from Grace. Anyways, this movie came out in 2013, and it is about an ambitious married woman's temptation by a handsome billionaire that leads to betrayal, recklessness, and forever alters the course of her life. Now, this movie is actually based on a Tyler Perry play by the same name. I could not stream this movie anywhere, so I actually had to rent it on YouTube in order to watch it, but it was so worth it. It's still just as good as I remember. Now, when I say it's as good as I remember, take that with a grain of salt. After all, it is a Tyler Perry movie. Like, it's not the best movie in the world. I'm not saying that by any means, but this is actually a well-rounded Tyler Perry movie. So it still has all of those Tyler Perry tropes and cliches. It's just done a million times better to the point where it's palpable. Like, I can digest this movie. I can watch this. I can watch this over and over again. This is probably, I don't want to say it's a comfort movie, but it's like just a notch below comfort movie. Like, I wouldn't mind watching this like once a month. That's crazy to say. Let me take that back. Let's get into the notable cast. Starting off strong, we have Jurnee Smollett as Judith. We have Brandy Norwood as Melinda, Lance Gross as Bryce, Vanessa Williams as Janice, Kim Kardashian as Ava, Robbie Jones as Harley, Ella Joyce as Sarah, Renee Taylor as Miss Waco, and last but not least, Candace Koch as the marriage counselor. So now that we've done all of our introductions, let's get into a full detailed breakdown of Temptation: Confessions of a Marriage Counselor. So the movie begins with a couple in marriage counseling, and it's very obvious that the woman in the relationship is detached. The husband is having a hard time connecting with her and getting her back, and he leaves the counseling session. Now, the marriage counselor reads the woman and lets her know that she can tell that there's another dude in the picture, and he's probably so much better than her husband, giving her flowers and attention and everything she ever wanted. Now, the counselor does not want to judge this lady, but she wants to give her some advice via a story about her sister Judith. So essentially, this entire movie is from the perspective of this marriage counselor telling a story about her sister Judith. So we travel back in time and we see Judith, and she's growing up in a small town with their mother. So from a young age, Judith spends a lot of time in church with her mother, and this is where she meets her husband, Bryce. Now, they have literally been infatuated with each other since they were kids. We actually watched them grow up and go through high school, and then after high school, they get married. Now, they don't mention college, but it is noted that both of them have college degrees. So one of the first things that I want to point out about this film, right in the beginning, where we're seeing Bryce and Judith and their love from childhood, we can hear a score playing in the background. And that score, or the theme of this movie, it actually pops up at different scenes of the movie. And I feel like I don't know, something about a score makes a movie feel like a movie. Like it just wraps it up. If a movie is a cake, the score is the sweet icing on top. Like if you literally think about a lot of your favorite movies, there's probably a song or a score associated with it. And that score or song probably evokes some kind of emotion. Think about like Star Wars and like the Darth Vader theme. You know, every time you hear that, you can recall the movie and you remember how you felt the first time you heard it. And that movie does the same thing to me. I love the score of this movie. And it's one of those scores that people don't think about. Like, another example of this is the Candyman theme, like the little piano song playing in the background. That's literally my favorite part of. I almost said the name twice. I don't play like that. I almost said that man's name twice. You know who I'm talking about, this man. So that's my favorite part about this movie, because I'm not saying it again. Ooh, nice catch. Anyways, the score of this movie is probably one of my favorite parts about this movie. It's something it's not romantic, it's kind of sad. I don't know, it's just so beautiful, and that's literally my favorite part about this movie. It just makes it feel like an authentic movie, and it doesn't even feel like a Tyler Perry movie, because I don't think any of his other movies have scores or like a theme song in the back. And I know he's not responsible for the theme song, but I don't know, it's just something about it that I like, and I wanted to point it out. So after Bryce and Judith get married, they actually leave their small town and they move to Washington, D.C. They get a cute little townhome. I don't know if it could be classified as a brownstone, but it's this cute little house. It's not much, and they even make a point to say that it's not much, but they don't need anything but each other. And it's this really authentic love. Like, I don't care if we got money, we can live off love alone. Bryce is actually working in a pharmacy, and he has hopes of one day owning his own pharmacy. And as for Judith, she wants to become a marriage counselor. Now, she's not quite there yet, but in the meantime, she's working for Janice Wise, who is a millionaire matchmaker. So we follow Judith to work, where we meet her coworker, Ava, played by Kim Kardashian. Now, in this movie, Kim K is a horrible actress, but it actually works because her character is essentially Kim Kardashian in the early 2000s. Like, she didn't have to act much. Back to the office, Ava is dragging Judith for her outfits and telling her that she needs to dress better. And Judith's excuse is basically, I don't need to dress up to do my job. And I feel that, because back when I used to work in the office, I used to wear flats every day. My feet looking like reindeer hooves. Every single day, black flats. They were ugly, but they got the job done. But basically, we're learning a little bit about Judith and who she is as a person. She does not care about fashion. She doesn't care about designer items. She's just here to work and do the best that she can do. So in walks Harley, and Harley is a social media mogul. They describe him to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And he has a social media platform. I forget what it's called right now, but it's supposed to be one of the biggest platforms ever. But somehow Judith has never heard of him or the platform, so that kind of shows you where her head is at. So Janice calls Ava and Judith into the office to have a chat with Harley. Harley is not there for matchmaking services. He's actually there because he wants to invest in the business. But before Harley invests in the company, he wants to have a chat with their in-house therapist, Judith. He wants to invest in Janice Wise's company and make it an app or an online service, because currently it's kind of just men walking in and out of the office. During this time, we were kind of on the cusp of social media running everything, so it only makes sense for there to be an app for this dating service. And this is kind of a point I want to make about this storyline. This is good writing. This makes sense. In a Tyler Perry movie now, I don't think something as simple as him wanting to be an investor in the company would be a thing. I think he would simply be someone just coming in and wanting a dating service. Like, this is writing that Tyler Perry is not doing anymore. Like, I don't know how to better explain it. It just makes sense, and I think it's good writing. It's a good storyline so far. So now we jump to the pharmacy where Bryce is working, and we meet Melinda, Brandy's character, and Melinda is just now getting a job at the pharmacy. She's explaining to the boss, Miss Waco, that she just moved from Boston and she's so excited to have this new job, To which Miss Waco kind of clocks her tea and says, "You don't sound like somebody from Boston. Like, you don't have an accent." And Bryce and Miss Waco both start asking Melinda questions like, "Do you have children? Are you married? Like, what's up? Like, why'd you come to town?" And it's obviously making Melinda very uncomfortable. And it's very apparent that something is wrong with her or something is going on with her. They just don't know what it is. Miss Waco's first guess is that Melinda is a lesbian because she's wearing weird boots and she doesn't have a wedding ring or kids. And I don't know why that equals lesbian, but okay. We jump back to Judith's office, and while her and Harley are discussing business and how their dating services work, he stops the conversation to ask her if he knows her from somewhere. To which she responds, "I doubt we run in the same circles, like you don't know me." And he's like, "I do know you. You go running every morning in XYZ Park." And she's like, "Actually, yeah, I've seen you too. You're that weirdo who runs around with his shirt off trying to get attention." And he's like, "Well, I got your attention." So Judith goes home and she unloads on Bryce, tells him about her day, and just really wishes that she could start her own marriage counseling company already. His response to this is, "Oh, maybe you'll have your chance in like 10 years. And she's like, "Gee, thanks. 10 years? Like, how encouraging of you." He tells him about Harley and he's kind of excited. He's like, "Whoa, you're working with Harley." So he's fully aware of who this man is. He's impressed that she's working with him. So to make her feel better, he offers to take her out on a date. And she says, "Well, I don't want to go to another $1.99 buffet." And he's like, "Well, how about a $5.99 buffet?" So from these little jokes, we can kind of infer that they're kind of broke. So they go on their date, and on their way back from the date, she's catcalled by a group of men, and they basically talk to her nasty. And she's defending herself against these men, telling them that they better watch their mouths and don't talk to me like that. And who raised you? I think she even calls them jokers. Like, instead of like cursing them out, she calls them jokers. And I think that's a very good detail. I don't know if Tyler Perry wrote this or if Journey is a really good actress, but this fits Judith right now. She's not cursing. The way she's going off on these men is very godly. So when they get back home, she kind of notices that Bryce didn't defend her, and she asked him why. You didn't make me feel safe with all these men. And he's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? It was like 4 guys. They could have had a gun." And she's like, "Well, I didn't feel safe." And he's like, "Well, I just want to let you know that I would die for you and I love you and I would do anything for you." Now, I agree with him. There were multiple guys there and it's really not a safe situation. And I think most women wouldn't want their men to get in a fight with 4 other random dudes on the street of DC. That could end very badly. So I kind of get where he's coming from, but I also understand how she feels like unsafe. And I just don't know what more he could have done for her in that moment. So it's a kind of tricky situation, and I think this is good writing. A lot of people say stuff about Tyler Perry's newest works and about how a lot of his characters are either black and white. They're either good or bad. They don't live in the gray. There's no gray area. There's no like, well, I kind of see his side and I kind of see her side. It doesn't make you feel any kind of way about the characters. It's right and wrong, but in this scenario where he didn't defend her, yeah, I see where he's coming from, but I also see where she's coming from and not feeling safe. And I think that's good writing to make you kind of feel something or, question whose side am I on. But these latest projects that he has, you kind of know what side you're on. You don't have a choice. I don't think that's the best style of writing. It makes everything feel one-dimensional. It's not good storytelling. So the next day at the pharmacy, we get to follow Melinda home. And when she's walking home, she has her hood up as if she's hiding from someone. And even when she goes into her apartment, she's looking around like very paranoid that somebody could be in her apartment or that someone's out to get her. We just don't know what that's about quite yet. Back at Judith's job, her and Harley are working on, I'm assuming, analytics for the app or the algorithm for the app and how it's going to work. And after they're done talking, he kind of gets to know her a little bit better. He asked her, is she married? And they get into all the details about that. And he finds out that she's 25 and she'll be turning 26 in a few days. He goes ahead and he tells her happy early birthday. And then they get into discussing her dreams. She tells him that she wants to be a marriage counselor and one day open her own practice, to which he responds, I believe in you. I think you're so smart and I think it's a good idea. You got this. He gives her so much encouragement. He even tells her, you know, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them since I have successful businesses of my own. Basically, he gives her all the reassurance that Bryce did not give her. Like, how easy would it have been for Bryce to say, yeah, baby, I believe in you. You got this. Just a few more years. You're so smart. You could do it. But somehow this stranger or this new guy can tell her these things. So now Harley reveals that he's single and he has an ex that he just can't seem to get over. He then asks Judith if she's happy in her marriage, and she says yes, and that Bryce is a great guy. Remember that. He's a great guy. So there is this questionnaire that Judith made up that helps the company determine compatibility between two people. And Harley wants to know how come the compatibility test doesn't have any questions about sex or intimacy. And Judith replies, well, because sex isn't something that you should be doing before marriage anyway. Why does that matter when it comes to dating? To which Harley asks, how do you know if you're truly compatible with somebody if you've never had sex with them? And so now he's kind of putting two and two together, and he's realizing that Judith has never had sex with anyone other than her husband. And he's like, you're missing out on so much. And she's like, well, you know, me and my husband are very compatible in the bedroom. Or she says something that kind of brings up the bedroom, to which he asks, well, have you ever had sex in the shower or in the kitchen or on the tub or on a plane or on a train? On the floor, do you want it on the chair? Do you want it over here? Do you want it over there? Or on a bike or in the backseat of the, you know, whatever. You get the point. So this kind of gets her thinking, and it kind of gets her a little hot and bothered, so much so that when she goes home, she jumps on Bryce. Like, he's in the kitchen and she's on go. She's taking all that energy from that conversation with Harley and she's applying it to her husband, as she should. But when she's trying to initiate this new form of intimacy with Bryce, it scares him, or he's like, what are we even doing? We're in the kitchen. Give me a minute and we can go back to the bedroom and do this how we're supposed to do it. We kind of see that Bryce is kind of stuck in his old ways and he doesn't want to try new things. So they do what they do. And then the next morning she wakes up bright and early to get ready for a run, but she's not going to run. She wants to see Harley again. So she positions herself just so on the running trail so that she can run into Harley. And when she does run into him, they decide to take their run together. Now, on the run, somehow Judith is hit by a guy on a bike and knocks her down. I think she actually twists her ankle. And Harley's response to this is to go off on the dude on the bike. Like, you need to watch where you're going. You didn't see her? And I mean, he's going off on this dude. And that should have been red flag number one. But I guess she liked that. You know, he did protect her where Bryce did not the other night. You kind of see all these comparisons to how Harley is doing all the things she wants him to do, I guess. So Harley scoops her up off the ground and carries her back to his house. I know that's right. So he carries her back to his house and he wraps her ankle and takes care of her very well. And this is the first time that he kind of confesses that he might like her. He starts telling her things like, you know, does your husband appreciate you? He tells her how he notices all the little things about her, down to the blonde hairs on the back of her neck. So interesting enough, I do actually have like little blonde hairs on the back of my neck. No, I'm just kidding. I have little fine blonde hairs like on my face, maybe on my neck and stuff like that. And when he said that, period. Anyways, so he says, like, I noticed, you know, the way you breathe slowly when you're excited, you know, just stuff like that. And she reads him immediately. She's like, why are you talking to me like this when you have high heels in your bedroom? He has like this open floor plan. So like as she's sitting on the couch, his bedroom's like right over her shoulder. Why are you talking to me like this? There's high heels in your bedroom. This couch that I'm sitting on smells like floral perfume, and you got earrings right here on the end table. So I don't know why you're trying to play with me as if you're truly interested in me, but there's clear signs that you're still seeing other people. Now, this is a crazy thing for a married woman to say. First of all, like, you're married. Why do you care? Or why'd you call him out on it? You should have just been like, I'm married. But even if you weren't married, he's not with you, you know, I guess, I don't know. And then like, you just kind of showed your hand, like you're peeping all these things around his house. Why? Are you jealous? Are you interested? How did you notice that? Why do you care about that? Bryce comes to pick her up from Harley's house, and he's so oblivious. Like, he doesn't ask any questions. He doesn't raise any eyebrows. Let me call my husband, and I'm at somebody else's house, another man's house. So the next day, Judith is getting ready for work, and she's curled her hair. She's doing her makeup. Now, in this scene, the first thing that bothered me, even at a young age, he is steaming up this bathroom, and her hair looks natural. How has her hair not reverted in this steam? Her hair is thick, it's full, but it's holding its curl. Baby, it's steam resistant. It looks so good. I have a very big, I don't want to say fetish, but I really like looking at people's hair in movies, and don't let it be a ponytail. I love a ponytail. I'm always going to call out a good ponytail, and she has one in this film too, but her hair looks so good. She's curling her hair for the day. She's putting on her makeup, and he walks out of the shower. He tells her she looks nice, but he forgot to tell her happy birthday. Today is Judith's birthday. So when she arrives at work for the day, the receptionist hands her flowers, and she's relieved that her husband actually remembered her birthday, but plot twist, the flowers are not from Bryce, they're from Harley. He asks her if she likes the flowers, and he even notices that she curled her hair. I mean, Bryce did tell her she looked cute this morning, but he noticed the details, like, you did your hair different today. And I guess that's nice. You know, every woman wants to have someone who remembers their birthday, sends them flowers, notices that she changed her hair, and Bryce has done none of these things. Now, while Harley is making all these advances, Judith is keeping her guard up and letting him know, like, I am married. I'm happily married. You need to chill out talking to me like this. You know, I don't know why you're sending me flowers. It's a lot because I'm married. Now, later that evening, Bryce comes home and there's a single cupcake on the table. I guess someone might have given Judith a cupcake, or she bought one for herself. But Bryce realizes that he forgot Judith's birthday for the second year in a row. Not one. He did this last year too. I'll give you a pass for 1 year. But to forget my birthday 2 years in a row is just straight up, you don't care. You don't give a damn about me. Like, say less. You don't care about me. We might as well sign these papers now, because what? What are you doing? I could see if he was in school. I could see if he had a lot going on. You work at a pharmacy. How do you forget my birthday? That's just pure disinterest in me. That doesn't make any sense. And then if you did it the year before, you would think, I'm going to mark my calendar and I'm going to check it twice because I'm not missing your birthday again. That's a man who cares. But Bryce really comes off to me as a man who, like, what are you doing? You just got so comfortable. I mean, I guess it happens. I guess a lot of people do get comfortable in relationships like this. But forgetting a birthday 2 years in a row is actually insane. Now, to make it up to her for forgetting her birthday, he strips down in his boxers and he plays the guitar while lip syncing to a song for her. Now, back in the day, Lance Gross was the best thing since sliced bread. He was fine. Like, everybody liked them a little piece of Lance Gross, myself included. So when he stripped down into the guitar, he had like a little cowboy hat on. I was like, okay, you know, you're forgiven. That's enough. That makes up for everything. That's a good gift for forgetting my birthday 2 years in a row. You're forgiven. I don't really remember how old I was when this movie came out, but that was good for me back then. Now, as an adult, as a grown woman at my big age, that's not gonna cut it. That was not enough. I would have cussed him out. There is no way that you think we about to do anything and you forgot my birthday. Get out of my face. Put the guitar down. You sleeping on the couch. So the next day at work, we learn that Harley wants Judith to accompany him to a business meeting in New Orleans. And now Janice talks to Judith and she tells her, you need to be careful. I need you to go on this trip, secure the bag, get me this endorsement, but also be careful. I think she just sees it for what it is, that Judith is this naive young girl and she could easily get lost in the sauce dealing with someone like Harley. And just be careful and don't fall for the okie doke. So before the trip, Judith goes to Ava and asks Ava for a Kim Kardashian style makeover. Back at the pharmacy with Bryce, we learn a little bit more about Melinda. She's actually on the run from an abusive ex. Now, she has seen her abusive ex in town. He has finally caught up to her and figured out where she lives. And Bryce tells her that she shouldn't run. She should stay put. He wants to help her work things out And at this point, even now, I remember back then I was especially pissed. But now I rolled my eyes at this scene because it's like, you just forgot your wife's birthday. You're not paying attention to your wife at all. She's literally at another man's house after she twists her ankle. But you so concerned with this other lady and if she leaves town or not. Like, at this point in the movie, or when I first saw the movie, at this point I was like, okay, Tyler Perry. In true Tyler Perry fashion, of course Bryce is going to cheat on Judith. Boy, was I wrong. So moving on, Judith and Harley are in New Orleans and they have their little meeting and it goes well. After the meeting, Judith and Harley have a really good time in New Orleans. They have beignets and somehow he gets her to have not one, but 2 different drinks. Another thing about this scene, this is some good scenery. This is so obviously New Orleans. And I know that this film is probably backed by a whole production company versus Tyler Perry being independent the way he is now. But it's so refreshing to see actual scenery in a movie. Like if they were to go to New Orleans in a new Tyler Perry movie, they would probably just be sitting in some random cafe. They would probably just have some set or some kind of cafe and be like, oh, New Orleans is hot this time of year. Or New Orleans is so nice. I've never been to New Orleans. They would try to fake it so bad. But it's nice to know like this was budget. This was a good film. We have good scenery. We have location changes. Like it's just so different from everything that Tyler Perry is doing now. So on the plane, on the way back from New Orleans, Harley and Judith have a conversation about what it's like to be taken for granted. Harley talks about his ex and how she didn't appreciate him and how that made him feel. And Judith can, of course, relate to this. And at one point, Harley starts speaking like, if I could talk to my ex, I'd just tell her I want to make love to her right now. And you're so beautiful. Now, Judith gets this mixed up and she thinks that Harley is calling her beautiful. And he's like, oh, no, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking about my ex. And in this moment, we can see that Harley likes to play games. He's playing with her head already. When I was a younger girl watching this movie for the first time, I completely missed that. But yeah, he's playing the game. After they have this very intimate conversation, he makes his advances on Judith. And this scene is a little bit cringe. Now, he's trying to engage in the act with Judith and she's fighting him off, literally telling him to get off of her. And he says, stop it. Now you can say you resisted. You did resist. Now give in. And that is the craziest line I've ever heard in my life. Seeing this scene now with grown eyes, like back in the day, I thought this was, oh, that's kind of hot. No, seeing this now as an adult, this is actually crazy. And I don't think it's consent. I don't know what to make of it now, but it's actually very uncomfortable to watch. After the plane ride, Harley is driving Judith back home, and in the car she tells him, I don't ever want to speak to you again. Let's just act like this didn't happen, leave me alone, disappear from my life forever. As she's getting out of the car, Bryce is pulling up with her mother, and Bryce sees his wife getting out of the car, clearly disheveled, her hair look a mess. She looked a little tipsy and he is so oblivious again. Like he does not pay any attention to her. Now her mother actually does see this situation as being kind of weird and she actually drops some gems on Judith. She calls Harley the devil. And Judith says just because he has expensive things doesn't make him the devil. And the mother says it's nice to have expensive things. Just don't let expensive things have you. And that is a word. So the next scene is by far one of the craziest scenes in the movie to me. Judith and Bryce are sitting on the couch while Bryce is watching a football game, and Harley actually calls Judith on the phone. Now Judith takes a call right behind where Bryce is sitting. Like where that light is, Judith is literally right behind Bryce. Like she's like right there on the phone with this man. So now Harley is like, where is your husband while you're on the phone with me? And how come he's not interested in knowing who you're talking to? And I kind of agree because who are you talking to behind me? Ain't no way. So Harley is like, if you were mine, there's no way I would let you be talking to anybody on the phone or not be curious about who you're talking to. Now this is kind of controlling and crazy, but I get it. I get the appeal of, I get it. So now Harley tells Judith, put Bryce on the phone.
Where is he right now?
He's watching the game.
Yes! Put him on the phone.
Hilarious. Because why would I put this man on the phone? Be for real. So he asked her to put him on the phone, and she's like, obviously not. So now, for whatever reason, Judith is tripping on Harley on the phone, and she's like, you can't talk to nobody. I saw you at work today, and you walk right by me. You act like you couldn't speak. You just gonna do me like that and just act like I'm nothing? So she's lost in the sauce. She's gone. He even asked her, like, does your husband make love better than me? And she responds, nobody makes love better than you. Stand up. Judith, stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Judith, I need you to stand up, like, right now. Please. Please. Because you only did it one time. What do you mean nobody does it better than you? But I guess that's to be expected, like, when you haven't been with anybody else. And then, like, of course, a new body is going to be exciting, you know? So Harley tells her that he wants to see her again tonight and that they should meet up at XYZ time. He hangs up in her face before she can even explain, like, I can't leave my house. What are you talking about? He hangs up and she makes a way to leave the house. She tells her mother and her husband, actually, she doesn't tell her husband. She tells her mother that she has to work late, and Bryce is still sitting on the couch and doesn't even notice that she walks out of the house. Crazy. So fast forward to Harley's house. There is a steamy scene in the bathtub. They hook up again. And then afterwards, they're in the kitchen. I can't tell if it's the morning after. If it is the morning after, that's actually crazy for her. But they're eating in the kitchen, and he does a line of coke. He on that shit. He offers her a bump, and she's like, I'm good. I'll just stick with the wine. And he's like, no, you trust me, right? Now, I don't condone cheating, but I see how she got caught up in sex. What I don't understand is why she gave in to a bump of coke that quickly. Like, girl, do you have no backbone? Yeah, that's one thing I'm not gonna do. But she does a bump of coke, and then he offers her a proposition. Harley says that he would like to stop the investment on Janice's company, and he would rather invest in Judith's marriage counseling company. But there's a catch. She has to leave Bryce. And of course, she's like, I can't leave my husband. I'm not going to do that. And he says, well, what are we doing? If you're not ready to leave your husband, you need to get up out of my house. And Judith goes off. She curses him out. This is her first time using a curse word. And I don't know if it's the coke. I don't know what it is, but she's changing right before our very eyes. Amazing acting. So she's changing before our eyes. She cusses him out and she leaves the house. And he's kind of like laughing. Very toxic. When she gets home, her mother can tell that something is off with her. And she's like questioning her. Where have you been? Were you with the guy that dropped you off the other night? I think we need to come pray. You need to come back to the light because the devil got you. At some point, this is a bar, a bad bar. But she said the devil is going to drag you straight to hell. To which Judith replies, well, I'll enjoy the ride. That's a pretty good line. In this conversation, we learn that Judith's father, her mother keeps saying that the father has passed away, but Judith knows the truth. She knows that her father lives in a different city over, and that the mother left the father to join the church. It's a very muddy story and very like, where did that come from kind of thing. But I mean, what would Tyler Perry be without some random side story that just doesn't make sense and doesn't come back up ever again? But I guess this little blurb or this little conversation is to have Judith disrespect her mother in the worst way. Her mother slaps her and leaves the house for the night. And all this time, Bryce is sleeping. He doesn't wake up until Judith gets slapped and there's a loud commotion. So your wife left the house. You didn't notice her leave the house. And you went to sleep before she made it home. Husband of the year. So now comes another great part of the movie. Again, I love music and the relationship that music has with movies. This next scene is a montage set to the song In Love with Another Man by Jasmine Sullivan. This is my first time ever hearing this song, and now every time that I hear this song, I think of this movie, and that's what good music movie relationships are all about. This song is so gut-wrenching, so sad, and it just fits this movie. You would almost think she wrote this for the movie. Basically, we get a montage of Judith going back to Harley. She shows up at his house when he's pulling out of the garage in the Rolls Royce, and basically she just goes crawling back to him, and they hook up again in the back of the Rolls Royce. What's interesting, and I think it's also good writing, but it might be production, when Harley first talked to Judith about sex, he's like, well, you've never done it in the bathroom, you've never done it in a plane, you've never done it in a car, and these are all the places we get to see her hooking up with Harley. And I think it's good. Again, good storytelling or good direction, good production, good film. So in this montage, he takes her shopping for clothes, they look at a venue for her new business, and they do more coke and drink champagne. So after the montage, we go back to work with Judith, and she is stepping in the office with a brand new outfit, and it even impresses Ava. She goes into Janice's office, and she tells her she's quitting. And Janice is like, no, you're leaving today. You're fired because I got a call from Harley, and he told me that you guys are starting a new business and he's no longer endorsing my company. So now Judith reads her and tells her, I know that your accent isn't real. You went to Paris one time, but you really from Georgia. And then Janice drops her accent.
Spent those 2 weeks in Paris and all of a sudden you got a French accent? Oh, we know you from Georgia.
Bitch, you better get your ass out of my office.
And it's just a funny moment. It's like a nice little sprinkle of comedy in this very serious movie. So during the montage, we also got to see Bryce kind of pacing the floor, wondering where Judith is, and he's just now realizing that he's losing his wife. One night he shows up at this random house or like sex party. I think it might actually be Harley's home, and it's just this outrageous party. He goes in and he finds a lot of people touching all over each other. It's just this outlandish sex party, and he goes and he gets Judith and he drags her out of there. Now outside, this is one of the most heartbreaking scenes for me. I'm not gonna cry, but it can induce crying depending on the mood that I'm in. But Bryce is crying his heart out to Judith, and he's telling her that he misses her, and he's telling her that we could put all of this behind us. If you want to start over, we don't ever have to talk about it again. I'm sorry that I took you for granted. Just everything every woman wants to hear. And she tells him she's done. And she says that he's a great guy, but I want a phenomenal one.
I feel so dead with you, Bryce. I do. And I want to feel alive. I want to feel wanted. I don't just want a good guy. I want a phenomenal guy.
And you could just see Bryce breaking in front of him. Lance Gross acted his ass off in this scene, and so did Journey Smollett. Remember earlier when Harley was asking her about her husband and she said he's a great guy? She tells him in this moment that he's a great guy, but that's not enough. She wants a phenomenal one. So I think that's a very nice callback to the scene that we had earlier. You know, great was enough for her then. It's not now. And then she delivers the coldest line to him. She tells him that her counseling company has someone that could work with him through this difficult time. That is heartless. She then tells him that she doesn't need any of her old stuff and that Harley can give her everything she's ever needed, but she will be back to the house to pick up her laptop. So Bryce goes back to Melinda's place, his coworker, and he's devastated, and she's consoling him. And in the moment, he tries to hook up with her, which I think is actually very weird. But she stops him and she tells him, we're not attracted to each other, so don't even do that. I can console you and be a shoulder to cry on, but this ain't that. So Judith goes back to her house with Harley to pick up her laptop. She believes that her husband should be at work, so they don't have to worry about anything. She just wants to run in, get her laptop, and leave. But Harley wants to see what her old house looks like. But once they get inside, her mother is in there with a prayer circle, which is actually very random. Like, why are you in my house with a prayer circle? I guess. When Judith walks into the house, she's so grateful. She said, I prayed for God to bring you home, and now you're here. But all Judith wants to do is grab her laptop. So she grabs it and she's on her way out, but her and her mother are now playing tug of war over this laptop. Harley intervenes and snatches the laptop out of Judith's mother's hand. During that little tussle, he throws her mother to the ground. Judith tries to console her mother and pick her up off the ground, but Harley doesn't give her a chance to do that. He yanks her out of the house and drags her away. So back at Harley's house, him and Judith are getting into it about how he threw her mother on the ground. And Judith comes up with this insult like, well, just because my mother's not a crackhead like yours. Classic early 2000s Tyler Perry. There has to be some mention of someone on crack. Now that's one thing I can give him now. We've diverted away from the crackhead mothers in the stories. But back then, baby, every story needed a crackhead mother. That was like his signature. Crackhead mom. Harley does not like this insult of her calling his mother a crackhead. We don't know if it's true or not. But this insult sends him over the edge, and he actually abuses her in the closet. He slaps her around, and this is the first time we see him get abusive and show his true colors. So back at Melinda's house, she's cooking dinner for Bryce, and they finally get a little closer, and she feels comfortable enough to talk about her past. She then reveals to him that she has HIV. So she also talks about her abusive ex and how she's no longer going to be running from him. But this time, instead of being so vague about the situation, she calls him by name. And her abusive ex, his name is Harley. So now Bryce puts two and two together, and he realizes that his wife is with Melinda's abusive ex. And he rushes over to the house to get his wife. When he arrives at Harley's house, he has a brand new intensity. He kicks the door in. He rushes to the bedroom where he finds Harley passed out in the bed. He then moves on to the bathroom, and he sees his wife in the bathtub, beaten and bruised. And this is one of the saddest scenes in the movie. I don't even think I could talk about it because I might cry, and I don't want to cry on this channel. Not yet anyways. But he asked Judith... He asked her, I'm going to try to insert a clip because I don't want to talk about it.
Where are you hurt? Where are you hurt?
Right here. I hurt your heart.
It's one of the saddest, most heartbreaking scenes of the movie. And he carries her out to the truck, and then he comes back in and he beats Harley up. And Melinda comes in to pull Bryce off of Harley, and Harley sees Melinda, and he's like, I knew you would come back for me, and I knew that we would be together, you know, kind of further confirming that he is the abusive ex. And this whole time he was really just after her and using Judith. I mean, we knew that, but this is kind of like tying that story up. That is the end of this story. We are now back with the marriage counselor in real time. And the woman who was listening to the story is naturally shook. And she's asking questions like, is Judith alive? Yes. Does Judith now have HIV? Yes. Does Bryce have HIV? No. And the marriage counselor is answering all these questions. And the lady's like, thank you so much. I am now going to end this almost affair and try to make my marriage work. And I mean, what better way to fix a marriage than to scare the crap out of someone with a story like that? So we're now following the marriage counselor out of the office, and she makes her way down to a pharmacy. And we see Melinda in the pharmacy, and we see Bryce. And Bryce is filling her HIV medicine, I'm only presuming. They really don't talk about it. And lo and behold, the marriage counselor is Judith herself. After Judith gets her medication, Bryce's new wife and child walk into the pharmacy, and Judith then leaves the pharmacy and walks off into the sunset, and that is the end of the movie. This is one of the most heartbreaking movies I have ever seen, and I think what really gets to me is the concept of making a mistake. Bryce made mistakes in not paying attention to his wife, and Judith made a mistake of cheating or stepping outside of the marriage. And usually, I think we can all agree that we've made mistakes that we could bounce back from. But I think the saddest thing is to make a one-time mistake and then you're left with a permanent thing, or have something permanently with you forever from one mistake. This movie is truly a tragedy. I think when I first saw this movie, I immediately thought of like, this is Shakespeare level tragedy. Like, this is the worst story I've ever heard in my life. Sad ending all around. It's truly one of the saddest things I've ever seen. And every time I watch it, I get like this sinking feeling in my stomach the first time she hooks up with Harley. It's like watching a car crash. Like, you know what's happening now. And it's just so sick to watch. And I think bringing it back around to Tyler Perry and his writing, I think that's good writing. If you can make someone feel something. Like, I watched this movie for the first time in I don't know how long in preparation for this video, and I actually cried several times. That's good writing. That's good storytelling. I think this is one of the times Tyler Perry has hit it out of the park. Last week, we talked about how Tyler Perry's stories are never 100%. Sometimes he has a good story, but bad visuals, like in his plays. Sometimes the visuals are really good, but the story is lacking, like in Mea Culpa. But I think this film checked off every box. We have great acting. We have a great storyline. We have character development. We have great scenery, movie quality. Everything is good. Now, there are several other movies of Tyler Perry's that could fall into that. I guess you could say, like, Why Did I Get Married? I think that checks all the boxes as well. But this just happens to be my favorite Tyler Perry movie and the one that I wanted to talk about today. Let's put all the other things aside. Sometimes I understand that Tyler Perry may want to try new actors and actresses, and that might not come with the best acting skills. I know that production is not cheap, and so some of our scenery might be bad. And to be like, know that you want to be cheap with your wigs and costumes, so we get the things like the Shamar Moore braids. I understand lacking in all other areas, but Tyler Perry, there is no reason for you to have a bad storyline. You can write a good story. Tyler Perry knows how to write a decent story. Yes, we're going to have some cheesy cliches, but that's fine. There's an audience for those types of movies. The movies that he's writing today, I have no idea what's going on. I just wanted to make this video to prove to you guys, or to at least express my opinion, that Tyler Perry is very capable of writing a good movie. But anyways, that was number 100 of my all-time top 100 favorite movies. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.